Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, today's webinar. It's our pleasure to have Dr. Tausif Malik, who is a founder of Halal Angel and also creator of one of the world's largest crypto mining training program. So, Dr. Tausif, welcome here on our webinar today, and thank you so much for joining us. And I am Prashant Surana. I am co-founder of Snapper Future Tech and also Indian Blockchain Institute. And Indian Blockchain Institute has one of our brainchilds, which has been focused on always creating India as a blockchain talent hub. And based on our mission and our goal, we look forward in engaging with like-minded experts like Dr. Tausif Malik and other people in the community to come together and share some knowledge on the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies and the kind of impact it is going to have in our day-to-day life. So, welcome on the show, Dr. Tausif Malik today. And before we begin, I would just like to give a quick introduction about Dr. Tausif Malik. So, Dr. Tausif Malik has a very extensive background in the IT industry. He has spent a lot of time in the US and worked with a lot of IT companies and also a bit of background, in the media space. He's very well connected to the, His Highness Royal offices in the Middle East. And he's been in the blockchain and the cryptocurrency space for like about almost 3 to 4 years now. And recently, what Dr. Tausif Malik has started an initiative called Halal Angel Network, which is purely focused on impact investing. So today, in our webinar, we are going to discuss about what exactly is impact investing and the kind of impact it is going to have combined with the blockchain. So, yeah, Dr. Tausif Malik, would you like to give a quick, background about yourself and what excited you, about the blockchain and what you have been doing so
far? First of all, thank you, Prashant, for inviting me at your webinar, and thank you to the Snapper team for organizing this webinar. Social impact funding is very critical in times of critical issues and crises like pandemic, like COVID. And that's why we started, the Halal Angels Network. But just to give you background where I come from, that might be interesting. And then we can talk about how, my theory of reverse migration, which I'm using crypto mining. When I was 17, 18, I got into advertising industry. And I have been always like an entrepreneur. And I was lucky my boss, Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi Menon, gave me that opportunity. In early mid-90s, IT was just getting up, like the way blockchain is happening right now. And 3 to 4 years of experienced people, but not 3 to 5 years not available because the industry was very small. I went to my boss, Mrs. Menon, and said, ma'am, can I do something called recruitment campaign for IT industry? And she says, no one will write the copy and the creative director will throw it on your face. I said, give me a chance. And I did that. And you won't believe we got Veritas, one of the biggest clients. We did work for launching Infosys. Nobody knew Infosys that time. And because of being, fearless and doing stuff, it helped me build my first level of entrepreneurship skill. Over time, I realized that, there are two aspects of business. One is called pure capitalism, where, certain people's agenda is pushed. And there's something called social impact or sustainable development, which looks at holistic approach of, looking at how the economy can be developed. And over time, I've been doing that. And, that's what it is. Now, you said like since 4 or 5 years, I got into blockchain. I run a network called AIMBSM. And a friend of mine called Qayyum Qamar, he introduced me to blockchain. I never knew about blockchain. I knew about technology. And, 3 or 4 years ago, ICO was just happening. There was listing. So many things were happening 3 or 4 years ago. The more I read, I came to a conclusion that, blockchain is very high-end. You need people with a lot of skill sets and stuff like that. And why can't we look at the low tech of blockchain, which is crypto mining? So we started doing low tech of work was crypto mining. I put this idea because I'm a social entrepreneur. I went to Milind Kamleji, who is the founder and president of Dalit Indian Chamber of Industries and Commerce. And I told him, Milinji, the kids are coming from rural India. They are driving aggregators. They are doing food delivery. Why don't we do something? I have put a program called Crypto Mining Training Program, where these kids can do crypto, learn the trade of cryptos. And through your, Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce, what you can do is you can help them with Prime Minister Yojana of buying the rigs. The rigs were 3-4 years ago, like 3-4 lakh rupees. And he said, yeah, let's do it. Where is the MOU? I said, I just came to talk to you. He says, let's sign an MOU. Don't waste time. And we did that sign up, and I put the story on LinkedIn. And you won't believe it became like a rocket. It went across the world. Like farmers in India, Dalits in India are doing crypto mining.
Right.
That means the social impact went. Now, the theory of traditional and ethical investment to this topic is, if all these youngsters, instead of coming to cities, driving aggregators, let's assume they are driving an aggregator cab. On an average, they earn 50 to 60,000. The expenses are around 20,000.
Go there, Dr. Tausif. I would like to give you a quick background about what exactly crypto mining is, right? And how it exactly works at a very, very, high level, because so our readers are on the same page, and why, crypto mining is like really, really important for the, blockchain or the cryptocurrency ecosystem.
Sorry, I missed your point.
Before we go there, Dr. Tausif, it would be good if you can introduce, to our audience that what exactly crypto mining is and the importance of crypto mining.
Okay. Let's assume, I'll give you an example.
Right.
When we go to the post office, we carry an envelope.
Right.
That envelope is a sealed envelope. Right. And when we seal the envelope, whether it's a data, it becomes like a crypt data because it's sealed. Then we take 5 rupees coin. Then we go to the postman and give him 5 rupees coin. In exchange, he gives us a stamp. Right?
Right.
We put the stamp onto the envelope. And then, because we gave him 5 rupees stamp and in exchange he gave me a stamp, to put it on an envelope, then he puts a rubber stamp onto it. The minute he puts a rubber stamp, that data becomes authenticate data. So on blockchain, similar thing happens. Now, when you see traditional web hosting, there's a single server, you host it. Then there's cloud server. And all these banks, when they use to put data, they use multiple servers. But a hacker can get into that. But in blockchain, there are multiple servers which are hosted on nodes. And what is a node? Man plus machine. Mining machine plus a man becomes like a node. So when I go to the blockchain world to host my data, I put the data and I give fiat money and they convert into cryptocurrency, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Bitcoin, and then they host the data. When the data is put onto the blockchain, randomly the miner puts a stamp and it goes on to different nodes, certain percentage of data. That creates a block. So it's similar to a post office kind of a thing. Data is authenticated. And you can actually see the flow of data. Now, why it's critical when you compare with cloud hosting or regular web hosting? On blockchain, because there are some, for example, 100 computers and 100% of data is there. But the system will randomly take 20, 30 computers, and some computers will have 1% data, some will 2, some will 3. That means it's difficult to hack the blockchain.
Right.
And why mining, as I was talking, a miner is a low-tech job. You just need a computer rig connected to the blockchain network. And when data comes, in fact, these days, you don't need to even physically sit and do mining. The computer algorithm automatically mines the data.
Right. So you are essentially talking crypto mining from a perspective, also mining cryptocurrency and also data mining, like kind of creating a data infrastructure which is purely based upon algorithm and which is automated, and that would enable users to earn as per the contribution to the network, and the rewards are distributed fairly. Am I correct?
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So, why don't you, let us take us into social impact investing and how blockchain could potentially create a more transparency and create a bigger opportunity in the space, right? Like we know that, you have been mentioning in your lot of articles and lot of write-ups that okay, like blockchain could potentially create an impact in multi-trillion dollar industry across a lot of different geographies, right? So
Right.
talk about that. We see that okay, like today investments are available in a lot of forms and a lot of formats, but what we haven't seen so far is social economic impact investing taking up that form and space, right? I am sure that there are a lot of companies and a lot of people who would want to do something in good for social economy or something around social economy, right? And when they want to do anything, right, the biggest challenge what they face is funding, because people won't probably invest into such ideas because they cannot see that kind of a potential returns coming out of it. But you have been one of the pioneers in the industry, which has always been saying that, okay, you have traditional finance, you have traditional ways of raising money, but the success factor where a person gets an access or a startup gets an access to the funds is like hardly 1%. But with the social impacting and the kind of platform which you are creating today, all the companies and all the ideas around the world could become a part of that, ecosystem. And people could choose in which company they want to invest. They could trade freely, and also, they could connect at a level where there is highest amount of transparency, highest amount of trust, and the governance is purely driven by the blockchain network, or blockchain being the infrastructure of such kind of a system. So why don't you throw more light in terms of statistics and the industry and the kind of impact what blockchain could potentially bring to social economies, in creating social economies?
Okay, I'll lead you from where. When I talked about this crypto mining, it was social impact, theory. Like if some youngsters comes to Pune and does distribution of food through all these aggregator. We don't want to take the name of aggregator. So it's a food aggregator. He earns like 50,000.
Right.
Now, using future technologies like crypto mining, I get him a business. He becomes an entrepreneur. This is not like a gig economy. Like the aggregator is called a gig economy in America. It's not like a full-time job. So you're an entrepreneur, but it's still like a gig. So when let's assume there were two people from same village. They come to Pune, and one comes to Pune, one stays back. So one starts driving a cab or who's a food delivery guy. He earns on an average 50,000. Okay, and same guy, similar credentials guy, is in his own village, and we give him crypto mining rig. Okay. Now what happens is when somebody is staying at his own home place, his expenditure is less. Plus, he gets a lot of time, because if I'm in a new city, I'll be cleaning, I will be cooking. But if I'm at my hometown, I get all that thing from my household. Everyone helps me out. So I get more time and I get more money. Now think about 50,000 rupees in Pune is nothing. But 50,000 rupees in a remote village, Khed, Narangao, Manchar, is actually like 2 lakh rupees. Okay. And when somebody starts making money, they will in turn invest back in the community. So he'll start a small, vada pav stall. He might start a mobile store, but he'll still do crypto mining. And when he starts making money, he'll start buying stuff, right? Because in city, he's not going to acquire, television, big flat screen. But when it's his hometown, that creates economy. So that's the sustainable economy.
So what you are saying is that crypto mining could make economies more sustainable, could drive, consumerism, where consumers are spending more money and the economy is growing, right? Because of household spending increasing. My question here would be is that, right, setting up crypto mining, right, is also dependent on the network difficulty of Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency which you would like to mine. Let's say, for example, right, today, probably I invest like around 4 lakh rupees to 5 lakh rupees in mining a rig, right? What are the potential ROI which you think a person could generate by investing, 5 lakh rupees into a mining rig plus cost of electricity and internet, right? What is the potential ROI, let's say, for a over of, like 3 months, 6 months, and like for a year or so?
See, like, sorry, lost you. Okay. See, what happens is, I can't see you. Okay. What happens is, Prashant, uh, when you do crypto mining, the latest figures I have, you get around $9,000 if you do one Bitcoin.
Right.
If you complete the whole block, you get 9,000 on an average. Now, in the current situation, even $500 is good economy. Like a lot of rickshaw drivers are selling sabzi. Yesterday, a friend of mine called a very renowned chef in Pune is selling sabzi now, vegetables. So we need to come to some kind of a, thinking around. It's not going to change people's life, but India can emerge as a, future technology hub. That's our agenda. And if we have, let's assume right now India might have 1 lakh miners, 100,000 miners. If we scale it up to 600,000, we will become the backbone of the blockchain economy. Because without miners, your program doesn't work.
Right.
So it's a long play for all of us. So
but the question is from where the funding or from where the money is going to come to invest into such things, right? Because as we understand that India has been more of a follower when we talk about technology than being an innovator or being like developing some kind of a technology, right? And the way we grow or the way we have been growing so far is completely depending on the West or in the Western or following the Western countries. But the thing here is that India is being like a totally different place with a different mindset. And the challenges which we have today is like a very, very ground level challenges, right? I mean, still there is a potential for at least, over 150 to 200 million people still to join an internet economy. Our, per capita income is still around $25, right? And when we talk about economy, which is literally backward or which is emerging or which is still growing compared to other developed countries and developed economy where people have more disposable income to spend or to invest, possibly, right? How India could essentially go towards that journey or become successful, right? So whether do we need some investment or some subsidy from the government side, or do we need some kind of a investment or family offices coming, pooling funds together and investing for a cause, or do we need a platform or a blockchain driven platform where any person can possibly invest into such mining programs or the mining centers and possibly earn their share of income?
See, when we approach Milind Kamleji, there was Government of India's initiative when you start small business. It's called Udyog Aadhaar. Once you get a certificate of Udyog Aadhaar, certain banks can issue you, funding for that. We had got that, but unfortunately, those days, Jaitley ji, RBI were talking two different things. We could have become the blockchain capital of the world as of now. In fact, we created a program called MahaBFIC, Maharashtra Blockchain FinTech ISO Cryptocurrency. Because of Bitcoin cryptocurrency, we had to actually change the name now. The reason I tell you is because government didn't put a regulatory offer, and they could have said, we're not interested. You can do whatever you want. But unfortunately, there was too many things. Jaitley ji talking something else, RBI talking something. We lost that. Now, your previous question was traditional way of raising capital. Now, when traditional ways of generally in India, the problem is startups are not interested in building the companies. They're interested in raising capital. Instead of chasing customers, they're chasing venture capitalists. The other problem area because I'm part of this industry, people who work for a high profile IT companies, when they get a golden handshake, they go on to Wikipedia, Quora and read up certain buzzwords, and then they become investors. Now, because he himself is not, been part of an entrepreneurship journey, they start investing, looking at stuff which is not even relevant. So many startup events happen. but the result and outcome was zero because people were more interested in selfies. Now, I'll compare this thing with America because I'm an American citizen. I also live in America. America, there is no disposable income. Average Americans is actually struggling more than India. Average American makes $1,600 to $1,800. But the good thing about America is people want to give somebody an opportunity, and people don't cheat when somebody give you an opportunity. And they're more interested in scaling up business. So when you look at companies from startups to unicorns, they never raised capital. The capital went after them to buy stocks. In India, all these unicorns chase the venture capital to raise money. So there's a huge difference between startup culture there and here. Now, coming back, how the government, how people can help themselves. Firstly, when you start a business, you should look at how can I scale it up without taking somebody else's money. So, like, I can't cook on other people's fire. So I should go bootstrap and build my business. And when people look at it, people start following it. So this is what I tell all the people who come to me on I get daily at least 50 to 60 messages. How can I scale up a business? I always tell them chase customers. When you chase customers, you will come to know whether your product will work and whether you'll make money or not, and whether you need to better your skills.
Right. So the my another question or my another thought process here would be is that I mean, see, that's okay. Like, you are coming more from a perspective that, okay, companies should say chase customers and companies should probably create more value for the customers. But apart from that, if you look at the challenges, like from regulatory perspective, particularly, why the government or why RBI is not favoring it or is not in the favor of cryptocurrencies and would want to probably put across a ban. But recently, it's been a very big victory for the India on 4th of March when Indian Supreme Court said that, okay, banks cannot prohibit customers in trading or in transacting in cryptocurrencies, right? I think that's one step forward or one of the few steps which would drive more regulations coming into the picture. But my question here is that from your experience, what is that one thing which governments and the regulators are worried about and they are trying to stop it? Is there a fear among these regulators and the government agencies and particularly the bank that with more cryptocurrencies, the power of driving things would go to the community and it would be driven more community a driven perspective, and the centralization and the power which they control today over the economy and over the masses would be lost? Or they have a fear that, okay, these are the things which could probably can be used for some illegal activities and they cannot possibly find any trace of that?
The last statement you made, they think Bitcoin is more of illegal thing.
Right.
Now, if that's the hypothesis somebody has, it's illegal, then you should sit around and start draft regulatory thing around that. Unfortunately, none of the government officials or even the banks are not sitting together and writing this. Many times I've sent a message, through the social media to Modi ji, that if you want, there's a lot of people who could come and talk to you and, we can write a white paper for you, how we can put this thing, because when we did the MahaBFIC, Maharashtra Blockchain FinTech, ICO Crypto, the thing is, ICO can create a lot of jobs in knowledge management. Same thing like call center. Because Mumbai, Pune has a lot of chartered accountants media. So if somebody wants to tokenize his economy, we can help them. When I created this whole program after talking to Milanji, I approached Mr. Sam Pitroda. Now, Mr. Sam Pitroda is the father of Indian telecom. Without this, we would not be having a Zoom call. In 1980s, he came from Chicago, and then we talked to Mrs. Gandhi and then Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. And the first telephone, there were like at least between 10,000 people, there was only one telephone. After that, you saw a lot of PCOs, and from PCOs, the internet. And he came to University of Pune and established CDAC with Dr. Vijay Bhatkar and Dr. Mashlegar. And they created the Param, the first supercomputer of India, because Japan, Russia, and China and America refused to give us a supercomputer. They created with the cheapest money. So when I approached Mr. Sam Pitroda, because I'm from Chicago, he's from Chicago. I said, Sam, sir, I have this, plan of putting Pune as the future technology capital of India that will get investment and all that, which will drive the economy, because we don't want to be the outsourcing hub of the world. We want to create products. He says, right away, he says, I'll be your speaker. He didn't even say, I want to be keynote speaker. Then after some time, we were discussing more. He says the problem when we thought India could become a product country where we could make products like Windows, Microsoft, and Apple products, whatever. We became the outsourcing hub because it was easy money. People thought I could pick up money, outsourcing, and because of that easy thing, we lost innovation. And because of that genesis, the problem areas you talked about came into that. Now, blockchain, future technology. Right now, India is always looked up to as a technology hub of the world. And unfortunately, we're not converting that, whether on an individual level or administrative level. We're not doing that. If you do that, see, look at China. China became the manufacturing hub of the world. Why can't we become the super technology capital? Like anything in the world, they want to do it in technology. All those guys should come to India and hang around at least for a month. Talk to the tech experts. This is not happening. In fact, there's a concept which is happening. It's called maker concept. You know something about maker concept, Prashant?
No, I think it would be great if you can just throw some light on that.
Okay. There is two models in the startup industry. One is called the Silicon Valley model, which is the traditional model which we talked about. And one is called a maker model. Now, what happens in the maker model? You collaborate with some similar kind of companies with similar vision. And somebody says, I can give you A, somebody says B, somebody says C. They all collaborate and they create a product. So, for example, I want to make a phone, right? Brand name would be XYZ International or XYZ Mobile. But then when I come to you, you'll say, okay, listen, I'll put blockchain on your phone. Okay. Somebody will say, I'll give you the hardware, right? So it's a collaborative effort. It's called the maker movement. And Shanghai is inviting all these global people and they're driving their manufacturing. Now, if you use the same thing and if you say, okay, all these super technology guys come to India, whatever technology you want, we'll plug and play for you, right? Instead of outsourcing, you come and hang around with us. We'll give you at a discounted price because we're coming as a partner with you on that. So right. That's thing happening, and that's what we want to get everyone on board and do social impact. Because see, small companies don't get access in the startup industry, right? So if I can get a big guy and then I can plug in other guys onto the board, then what happens is a small guy also starts making money without getting into venture capital.
But there are already several existing models available out there. Like you have a lot of Chamber of Commerce, you have a lot of fellowships, you have a lot of scholarships, you have a lot of other family offices, investments, corporate funds, which is investing into similar kind of a model. So what you are proposing with Halal Angel Network and with your vision of social impact investing, where is the key differentiation?
See, the problem with all these Chamber of Commerce is it's more of a coffee club. Like I went to one of the Chamber of Commerce when I was doing this blockchain thing, and they thought we are conflict of interest because they want to do something similar after hearing us. Instead of collaborating, they felt offended. I'm just giving an example. And then it runs like a government thing because they will have a board meeting, they'll discuss, then minutes of the meeting written. In business, you can't do that. It has to be done right away, right now. See, look at America. America works fast. Whatever I do in America, when you call people, they'll tell you right away, yes or no. With the Chamber of Commerce, with the government, they'll say yes. So unfortunately, if you look at the outcomes is very poor. Very sorry to say, like one of the biggest associations into technology, I approach those guys, let's do it. But they're more of, mera job hai, I'll talk to my boss, he's not there. They're just avoiding time. So what I wanted to do is jump over these problems because, I'm not a crybaby. I like to do things. And so then I identified one market while doing that. And that market is called the halal market. Nothing to do with religion technically. Halal market is a $5 trillion economy. Okay? And what happens is, if you look at halal is nothing but sustainable or social impact funding, where you look at things where somebody was not getting help, you try to help them out, irrespective of their background, color, and creed. That's what we're trying to do with halal, and that's why when we launched it last month, it became a viral hit. 300 news channels have covered us till now.
Wow. That's amazing. So I think we are heading towards the conclusion of this session, and then I will open the floor for Q&A. But before we conclude, right, what are the concluding points you would like to make from regulatory perspective, from ecosystem perspective, and from the overall, like global perspective is really, really important to drive this vision of, impact investing and create opportunities for humanity.
First of all, right now we have a very big migrant crisis going on. People are going to struggle. If we can just go to the world and says, listen, because technology is going to play. See, without Zoom, we would not be talking. So technology has come into our life more now, thanks to COVID. And everyone has a smartphone. Internet is available everywhere. If the government accepts our proposal of crypto mining program, instead of, yesterday Yogi ji announced that 1 crore jobs are given to people. Job still a job. If you can create an entrepreneur with little money, it creates more value in the society. That's a first step. Now think about if you can convert 10 lakh people, 1 million people of India into crypto miners. Right. Then every blockchain network wants to use that network for crypto mining, right? That will create something. The second step would be is announce to the world that India is open to future technology hub, and we will work with the maker standard. If you do the maker standard and say, listen, see the project we are discussing with each other. I have a network, you have a technology, right? You plug and play and creating products, right? Instead of me putting in money to develop a product and you putting in money for marketing, waste of marketing money, waste of development money, right?
Right.
We can work together. So that maker model, we can use it in technology also. It's not only manufacturing. And when we do maker model for technology, even manufacturing will come to India. Yesterday we talked about a lot of banning Chinese products. But where are the components manufacturers in India for us? China is the biggest supplier. So if we do crypto mining, we can do a second step of, manufacturing crypto rigs. When we launched this, one of my friends who works with the Telangana government, they called me and this is, why don't you come to Telangana? The Telangana government will talk to KTR and everyone. We can manufacture the rigs in Telangana. So right. Step of crypto mining led to crypto rig manufacturing.
Yeah, but here one of the key issues has always been the regulatory perspective and also the price volatility for cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, right? I mean, how that volatility is essentially going to be managed because today one Bitcoin could be worth like $10,000 and tomorrow one Bitcoin could just be worth like just $5,000, right? And that would create a lot of upside, downside, and huge volatility and other risk to the people who are involved in the space. So how are we going to solve that governance and the regulation problem around it?
See, look at Japan. Japan is a slow in technology movement. But you see, Binance has become a global player, right?
Right.
So government interfere in the regulation. They use the stock market regulation and forex trading regulation to put the regulatory thing for Bitcoin. It is not a rocket science, right? Secondly, the volatility is there. Reason people are more into trading than using crypto for the what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to use as transaction on the blockchain, but people have removed that and trading. So more people get into creating apps or technology where Bitcoin is going to be there. It will slowly stabilize. And sometimes government doesn't need to put regulation. Like in 1990s when IT industry was evolving, the government didn't put any regulation, and you see we have become a global player in outsourcing. Even now, there's hardly any regulation.
Yeah, true. So I think what you have mentioned is like absolutely makes a lot of sense, right? I mean that people have to be, and the ecosystem has to be more self-governed, has to be ethically driven, and has to be a more collaborative approach. And government has to be more open-minded than just being more capitalistic about things, and try to create opportunities and try to support things which would create, employment opportunities for everyone all across the world and the country. So, right. So, I would now open the floor to our attendees to kind of ask Q&A. So you could just probably raise your hand or just post your question in the chat box, and we would glad to take it up.
Hi, thanks for giving the opportunity. Thank you for Dr. Tausif Malik, and thank you Prashant Surana Jain for hosting this interesting webinar. Am I audible enough to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is Abdul Wasi. My question to Dr. Malik is, what's the, you talk about mining, setting up mining industry in India. Recently on 11th June, Finance Ministry made an announcement that they are again coming up with a complete ban on cryptocurrencies. And anyone who would trade in cryptocurrency would have 10 years jail and 2 crores of penalty. So when the finance ministry is coming up with such draconian laws against this industry, I don't know what is the motivation for you to penetrate into India with this mining model. The second question is, last year, a gigawatt miner declared bankruptcy, if you reckon. And, so what's the economy of mining when big companies like Gigawatt are declared bankruptcy? And this year, a startup by the name Layer1 Technologies is setting up a huge gigawatt scale rig in Texas. So this kind of a all very unstable ecosystem, it seems to be. So if you can address these questions.
Okay. When you talked about India, when we did this program of crypto mining, we were approached by a lot of countries from Africa, Southeast Asia. In fact, I went to a couple of countries in Southeast Asia last year, and they're saying this crypto mining can address certain problems of unemployment, and it will create sustainable development. So we are in process of putting this program to a lot of countries there. That is one. Secondly, every business has bust. So one bust doesn't define the industry. Okay. So look at big brands which went bust. Like Motorola was number one in mobile. Nokia was number one. What happened to it? They didn't make a decision. But smartphone industries developed. So one case doesn't. Our program versus a corporation mining. A corporation raises millions of dollars to put a rig, and his break-even cost becomes a too lengthy process. But somebody who puts a rig of 3 to 4 lakh rupees, his break-even point is less. Like look at Uber or Ola or Zomato. They don't own the vehicles. They just created the technology where people can plug in. Where the operating cost is only maintaining that network, right? Same thing. Our model is people can connect to that network using this training program and doing Bitcoin mining wherever they are. So the cost remains low. Even if there's a loss, there might be 1, 2 couple. Maybe let's assume 10% attrition rate of people losing out, but still 90% will survive. And in today's era, it is all about crowd economy where people collaborate with each other.
Many existing rigs are closing because of the halving. They used to get 12.5 BTC, now they 6.275. So do you think still the model is reaching the break even after investment of 5 lakh rupees?
See, the problem what happened to blockchain industry, right? Firstly, Bitcoin, the trading became like it became like herd mentality. That's one. Secondly, suddenly everyone was a bounty hunter and ICO. I used to get, like, the minute I launched, maybe 2,000 messages every day. I'm a bounty hunter. What happened is people actually messed up this market. Because they never knew what was a bounty hunter. He might be living out of a bed, but he was a bounty hunter. He's listing an ICO. That gave a bad reputation. In next few years, blockchain is going to stay and it's going to get right people on board. So I'm waiting for that. I'm not in rush. I'm waiting for that.
Right.
And sir, I have one common question.
Yeah, Prem.
Yes, sir. And thanks for the webinar first. Thank you, Sirana sir, for hosting it, and thank you, Tausif sir, for driving it further. And my question is: are the mining rigs are only for Bitcoin blockchain, or we can use these mining rigs to drive some other similar DLT networks in future?
When we started, it was purely looking at Ethereum rigs rather than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin rigs you can't use a lot of applications. It's just money transfer can just happen. But Ethereum was very hot that time, and it's still hot, where you could make a whole platform and you can use it. So Ethereum is going to stay. That's what my reading is, and so we are looking at Ethereum rigs.
Okay.
Ethereum because it makes money for the application. When people make money, the ecosystem works.
Yeah, I think absolutely I agree with you, because Ethereum is more about that decentralized kind of an infrastructure which we need to create the technology, drive the economics within those applications, and also the governance mechanism. I think Ethereum, like theoretically and fundamentally across its white paper, have everything which is required to drive a truly, decentralized kind of a governance system and, economy models. Great. So, any more question, guys?
How can I call that?
I have a question. I have another quick question, Tausif. You talk about halal economy, $1 trillion halal economy. So there is a kind of an oxymoron discussion going on in the community that Bitcoin itself is not halal. Blockchain technology is misunderstood, and people are trying to equate Bitcoin with blockchain technology or any cryptocurrency with the blockchain technology. So what kind of resistance have you faced so far, or you are hoping to face the resistance within the halal ecosystem? And if you have to give a webinar on inviting people to invest in cryptocurrency, how would you explain to them that this Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency or even the blockchain ecosystem is compatible with the Sharia?
Okay. First of all, I don't tell people to invest into cryptocurrency. I don't believe in trading, even of stock market. So telling somebody to buy BTC, that means I'm telling them to trade. Technically, it assumes that. Secondly, why I got into Bitcoin. That's the only currency which doesn't touch the bank. And as you know, when you read the religious books of even the Hindu textbook or Muslim textbook, Jewish textbook, there is a strong denial from Almighty to refrain from interest.
Yes.
All religious books talks about it. All religious books.
I agree with you. Yes.
Not only the Muslims talked about it. Yeah. When you look at that, Bitcoin is the only currency which doesn't touch the bank.
Right.
So that, in fact, 2 years ago, there was a fatwa issued by an Indonesian mufti. So one of the very popular news channels also contacted me, two of them, and they asked me, can you give us, Dr. Malik, we featured you, can you give us feedback? I said, using cryptocurrency is not a problem, but trading is a problem. That's what I feel. And I don't tell people of investing into anything. The reason is there's a lot of Ponzi scheme happens under the name of community and religion. You must have heard of Gold, IMA, religious guys talking about it. Doesn't work like that. I'm a plain business guy, right? I look at ethical businesses, and that's what I learned from my, maternal grandfather. He was one of the big business guy. So when I used to sit at the store, he was very honest. He was very straightforward. In fact, he was very upfront when customers come. So I look at from a point that you have to be very ethical. Now, why blockchain? Blockchain is the only technology which authenticates the transaction and records it. No other technology is there. Okay? And in Islam or any religion, writing a contract is very essential of your basic business. Okay? And blockchain takes it to another level of recording that transaction. So I'm a proponent of using the technology. I'm not telling people to invest in cryptocurrency or trading into cryptocurrency. I hope I clarify that.
So why you think trading is a problem?
trading is speculation. And in Islam, it's mamnua. You can't do speculation. You have to be on the ground and do trade business.
Right. So you don't do even stock market.
I don't do stock market. Yeah, even if I have to do stock market, I will invest as an equity owner, not as a speculative owner. So if I'm investing, for example, into Tatas, I will invest, for example, 100,000 rupees. I will not trade it. I will wait for my dividend. And when I think it's time to sell it out, I will sell it out. But not into speculation that after 6 months, I'm going to exchange this and exchange that. I don't do that.
Right.
Okay. So any more questions, guys? Or
how to contact him if I have to.
Yeah. So, Dr. Tausif, could you just share your contact details on how people from our community can contact you?
You can Google search Tausif Malik. You'll find everything about me. And the easiest way is to write my WhatsApp number. I always answer to people. +1. That's a US number. 773 536 9786.
Sir, could you please repeat?
773.
Yeah.
Plus put international code +1.
Yeah.
Then 536 9786. And you can also note my India number +91 797 280 2372. All my numbers, you can Google search, you can get onto LinkedIn, you can find me. I always answer to people. Correct. My email is very simple. My first name, last name @gmail.com.
Okay, so wonderful, guys. It was really good to have you today, and thank you so much for joining and being so interactive. And thank you so much, Dr. Tausif Malik, for being here with us today and throwing some light on a lot of aspects and giving a new way forward, bringing more impact and more transparency to our overall social, economic, society and the way forward. So thank you so much, guys. Cheers and have a good weekend and see you again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today. Keep it tight.